My neighbor called the police on me. Every week, the first time the police knocked on my door, I thought someone had died. The second time, I thought it was a mistake. By the sixth visit, I realized my neighbor wasn't trying to protect the neighborhood. She was trying to destroy my life. What she didn't know was that every false report she made was building the case that would eventually turn her own life upside down. My name is Ethan, and 3 years ago, I bought a small house on Maple Street after spending almost 15 years saving every spare dollar. It wasn't fancy. The paint needed work. The fence leaned slightly to one side. The backyard looked like a jungle. But it was mine. For the first time in my life, I wasn't paying rent. I wasn't answering to a landlord. I finally had a place where I could breathe. Most of my neighbors welcomed me warmly. An elderly couple across the street even brought homemade cookies on my first weekend. Everyone seemed kind, except the woman next door. Her name was Linda. She lived alone in a perfectly maintained white house. Not a single blade of grass was out of place. Her roses were arranged in perfect rows. Her driveway looked cleaner than most kitchens. She smiled when introducing herself, but something about that smile felt cold. "I like quiet neighborhoods," she said. "I do too," I answered. She looked me up and down. "I hope you won't be one of those people." I laughed awkwardly. "I don't think I know what that means." "You'll find out." Then she walked away. I should have taken that warning seriously. 1 week later, I invited 2 friends over to help repaint my fence. We worked all afternoon. Around 6 in the evening, we grilled burgers and talked outside. No loud music, no alcohol, no shouting. Just 3 exhausted adults eating dinner. Then flashing blue lights filled my driveway. 2 police officers stepped out. We received a complaint about a loud party disturbing the neighborhood. I stared at them. A party? One officer looked confused after seeing only 3 paper plates and a small grill. My friends quietly waved. The officers apologized. Someone had reported screaming, drunken fighting, and dozens of guests. None of it was true. As they left, I noticed Linda watching through her living room curtains. She didn't even try to hide. A few days later, the police returned. This time, the complaint claimed I was burning illegal trash that produced dangerous smoke. The officers found me watering flowers. No fire, no smoke, nothing. They apologized again. Linda stood outside watering her roses. She smiled at the officers. Then she looked directly at me. The smile disappeared. Over the next 2 months, the calls became constant. Anonymous reports claimed I was keeping dangerous dogs, running illegal construction, playing music after midnight, threatening neighbors, selling drugs from my garage, parking stolen vehicles. Every accusation was completely false. Every single time the police found nothing. The officers became familiar faces. One of them finally sighed and said quietly, "Mr. Carter, we're starting to suspect someone is abusing emergency services." I nodded. I know exactly who. He couldn't say anything, but his expression told me everything. I tried talking to Linda peacefully. I knocked on her door. She opened it only a few inches. "I think there's been some misunderstanding." "No, there hasn't. I believe someone keeps making false complaints." She smiled again. "Maybe you should stop giving people reasons." "I haven't done anything." "That's your opinion." Then she closed the door. Soon the harassment spread beyond police visits. My packages disappeared. My garbage cans were tipped over. Someone poured weed killer along my flower beds. Neighbors who barely knew me began avoiding conversation. Rumors spread quickly. People whispered whenever I walked by. Even though none of the accusations were true, people started wondering. Because when police cars visit someone's house every week, many assume there must be a reason. I felt isolated inside the very home I had worked so hard to buy. One evening, another officer arrived. This time, he didn't look annoyed. He looked concerned. "Mr. Carter, I probably know why you're here." He nodded. "Someone reported child abuse." I froze. "I don't even have children." He looked embarrassed. "I know." After checking the empty house, he apologized. Before leaving, he quietly handed me a card. "It may be time to install security cameras." That single sentence changed everything. The next weekend, I installed cameras covering every angle of my property. Front yard, backyard, garage, driveway, doorbell camera, everything. I didn't know it then, but those cameras would capture far more than I expected. 3 days later, the footage showed Linda walking onto my property at 2 in the morning. She wasn't confused. She wasn't sleepwalking. She deliberately walked through my garden. Then she dumped an entire bag of garbage behind my garage. The next morning, guess who called the police to report illegal dumping? Linda. The officers arrived. Before anyone said a word, I invited them inside. "I think you'll want to see something." We watched the video together. Neither officer spoke for almost a full minute. One finally whispered, "Well, that's new." They copied the footage before leaving. Linda watched from her porch, looking unusually nervous. But she didn't stop. She became even more desperate. Over the following weeks, my cameras recorded her, throwing nails into my driveway, spraying chemicals on my bushes, moving my trash cans into the street, scratching my mailbox with a key, walking across my lawn nearly every night. Each recording went into a carefully organized folder. Dates, times, videos, photos, police report numbers. I documented everything. Without confronting her, without arguing, without yelling. I simply collected evidence. One Saturday morning, I received another visit. Not from the police, from a lawyer. Linda was suing me. According to the lawsuit, my security cameras violated her privacy. She demanded they be removed immediately. She also wanted financial compensation for emotional distress. I almost laughed. Instead, I hired an attorney. He reviewed every video. Then he smiled. "This may be the easiest case I've ever handled." The court hearing arrived 2 months later. Linda entered confidently. She told the judge I had become obsessed with recording her. She claimed I intentionally aimed cameras into her windows. She described herself as the victim. Then my attorney stood. He calmly displayed photographs showing every camera pointing only toward my own property. Next, he played video after video. Linda entering my yard. Linda damaging my plants. Linda dumping garbage. Linda throwing nails. Linda making gestures toward the cameras. The courtroom became completely silent. Even Linda's lawyer slowly lowered his head. Then came the final piece of evidence. My attorney requested records from the local police department. Over the previous 8 months, guess who had made 34 anonymous complaints? Linda. Every single one was proven false. The judge looked directly at her. "Mrs. Walker, do you have any explanation?" She said nothing, not one word. The judge dismissed her lawsuit immediately, but he wasn't finished. He referred the evidence to the district attorney for investigation into filing false police reports, harassment, trespassing, and property damage. Linda suddenly looked terrified. For the first time, she realized this wasn't about annoying her neighbor anymore. It had become a criminal matter. Several weeks later, she accepted a plea agreement. She paid thousands of dollars in fines. She was ordered to compensate me for the damaged landscaping and property. She received probation. She was also legally prohibited from contacting me or entering my property again. The woman who had called the police almost every week could no longer even step onto my lawn. Something unexpected happened afterward. The neighborhood changed. Neighbors who had avoided me started apologizing. One family admitted they had believed the rumors. Another confessed Linda had spent years trying to force people into selling their homes. Apparently, I wasn't her first target. I was simply the first person who documented everything. A year later, Linda sold her house and moved away. A young couple with twin daughters bought it. The girls laugh while riding bicycles in the driveway. Their parents wave every morning before work. Sometimes we barbecue together on weekends. No police cars, no false accusations, no drama, just neighbors acting like neighbors should. Looking back, I learned something important. When someone keeps trying to provoke you, they often expect anger, they expect shouting, they expect mistakes. What they never expect is patience, evidence, and the truth. Because lies can survive for a while, but documented truth is almost impossible to defeat. And in the end, the weekly police visits that Linda thought would ruin my life became the very evidence that exposed hers forever.